Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while since we've filmed something. This young man here is Evander, and today we're going to be telling you all about his birth. And he is currently 18 days old, so about 2.5 weeks. So for those of you that are new or you don't know, we filmed the birth, we did a birth vlog. So if you haven't watched that, we'll link it somewhere so you can watch it and you can see the whole kind of process of us going through the labour and showing you what was happening at the time. And if you have watched it, you'll know that it started with me having my waters break early in the morning on Wednesday the 17th of January. So we had planned on a home birth, and I'd also been doing hypnobirthing from about week 20 or something. I bought a book and it came with an MP3, and I read the book a couple of times and listened to the MP3, which was like relaxations. Are you trying to do a poop? Are you trying to do a poo-poo? So Evander started trying to push a poo out just now, so Jodie's going to look after him for a bit while I tell you what happened with my labour and stuff. So yes, I was doing hypnobirthing. I was listening to an MP3 every night before bed and doing some practicing of like breathing techniques and visualizations and stuff. And hypnobirthing people advocate home births and stuff as well, and water births, which we planned on having a home birth and a water birth, and we even got the pool and paid for a liner and blew it up and tested it out, which you can see in another vlog. And unfortunately it didn't end up happening that way, and we ended up having to go into hospital and have an induction. So eventually, after a long day of waiting around and having phone calls and going back and forth to the hospital, we were called in at about 1:30 in the morning on the 19th of January for the induction. And I went in again and had an exam, so an internal exam, from the midwife, who was really nice. And the internal exam I was a little bit worried about because I'd heard that they're quite painful and not very pleasant at all. But it was fine. It wasn't pleasant, obviously, but it wasn't painful, and the midwife was very considerate. Bless you. And apologetic and stuff, and she made it as quick as possible. So she was checking to see if I had been dilated at all, and also she wanted to see if there was any waters left around the baby's head, because sometimes that can stop labour from progressing properly. So she did the exam, and I had no idea, but these contractions that I were experiencing were actual contractions and had got me all the way to 3 to 4 centimetres dilated and 100% effaced without me even feeling them much. It just felt like tightenings. Like literally, it just felt like my stomach muscles or my uterus muscles were tightening. It didn't hurt. And yeah, I was 3 to 4 centimetres dilated when she did the first exam. And there was a pocket of waters there, and she popped them, which didn't hurt either. And she said, let's wait and see if you start contracting more on your own, and then you won't have to go on the drip for the induction. So after that, we waited a while, and the contractions did start getting more and closer together, but it wasn't enough. They weren't satisfied with that, so I did end up having to go on the drip. But in the time where I was contracting on my own, I could feel that they were getting a little bit stronger, but still I was in no pain whatsoever. And when she put the drip on, I definitely felt like they were getting stronger still, and that's when I started feeling like I had to use my breathing techniques to breathe through it, but I still didn't feel like it was painful. And in the hypnobirthing book, it says a lot of stuff about how many mammals go through labour and they do it all on their own without any pain relief and stuff. So it doesn't have to be a painful experience, and it's more to do with the fact that we've heard so many negative stories or from people who have had bad experiences or witnessed bad births, that we are scared into thinking negatively about labour and birth and thinking that it's painful when actually it doesn't have to be. Which you may or may not believe, but for me, the labour was not painful. And the stronger the contractions got, the more I had to breathe, but it was more just, how can I explain it? It made me feel like I needed to breathe. Like, it kind of made me feel short of breath, even though I was just laying down on a bed. And yeah, it just made me have an instinctive deep breath intake, and then, bless you, and then to breathe out really slowly. So I just felt like I was trying to remain calm and be relaxed and keep getting lots of oxygen to myself and to the baby, so that I was able to keep as much energy as possible, although I was exhausted at this point, in order to push him out a bit later. So yes, the contractions started to get stronger and stronger, and as they increased the drip, and did get to a point where I kind of felt a bit of discomfort up near my ribs on my right hand side, because I felt like that was where he was laid, like the most of his body was there, maybe his legs. So I kind of had to put my arm up over my head like this to give myself some more space around my ribs on that side while I was breathing through. And it was still fine. I wasn't in any pain at all. And yeah, I was even though I'd read all the hypnobirthing stuff and I was thinking it makes sense and it doesn't have to be painful, I was thinking it probably will get painful at some point. But none of the contractions part was painful for me at all. It felt odd and different and new, and it was powerful and strong, and I had to use my breath a lot, but I wasn't in any pain. Where are you going? How did you feel when you saw me doing the contractions business?
I just thought you were amazing. I didn't know what you were feeling. So at the beginning when you were getting the little tightenings, I just thought it was Braxton Hicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say we never went into this induction with fear, in spite of us knowing a lot of people have had bad experiences.
Yeah, and I always said I really didn't want an induction.
Yeah, so I don't know. We didn't feel like we were scared in any way, even me.
Yeah, I think by that point we were just excited to meet him, weren't we? And we just wanted to get it done.
But yeah, I felt seeing you, go through the contractions and you were fine, really put me at ease at that point.
Yeah.
Until!
Yeah. So, like I said, I expected it to start getting painful at some point, and towards the end, when they put the drip up for the last time, the contractions were quite one on top of the other. There wasn't a lot of gaps in between, so I didn't have a lot of time to rest, and I was really exhausted. And at this point, I started feeling a lot of pressure down by my cervix, and I was fully aware of everything that I was feeling because I wasn't on any gas and air or any other drugs or pain relief. So I could feel lots and lots of pressure down low, and I felt like it was probably going to be time to start pushing very soon. So I carried on breathing through the contractions, and then they started to get a bit painful. I don't feel like it was the actual contractions that were painful. I feel like it was the pressure from his head on the birth canal. And it was starting to stretch out and get ready to push him through. So that is when I started to feel some pain. It still wasn't bad or unbearable. It still didn't make me want to grab the gas and air or anything, which obviously I had available if I wanted it. So I was still carrying on breathing and just thinking about moving him down. And then I felt like I needed to change position. Bless you. because up until that point I was just laid on my back, and I thought to myself, this is not the way that I want to give birth. If I'm going to start pushing soon, I want to make the birth canal as short as possible so that he can travel down it as easily and quickly as possible. So I decided that I wanted to go on all fours and get into a position that was closest as possible to a squatting position on the bed. So I turned over and I did that, and then I started to feel more pressure, like as if that was the position that was getting him further down. And I think maybe at that point I started to make a bit of more sounds than just breathing, and I was feeling quite a bit of pain, but again not unbearable. And then I started to feel him coming down the birth canal, so I was very aware of everything that was happening, and it was quite sore and stretchy feeling, and very powerful and kind of uncontrollable. Like my body was just doing what it was doing and I had no choice. I had to just go with it. And I was still trying to just let my body do it and relax and breathe and sort of let him move down on his own. But then it got to a point where I had to push as well, because I couldn't just let my body keep doing it. There was too much pressure and I needed to squeeze. And that's the point where it started to get real. It started to get quite painful then, and I think that this may be what people describe as the transition stage, is where the woman starts to either get really angry or really upset or scared and think they can't do it or say they don't want to do it. But for me, it was just a thought in my head, and I was like, okay, this actually hurts now. I don't think I want to do it, or I don't think that I can, or something. And it was only a brief second that I thought that, and then I was like, no, there's no other way out of this. I've got to do this. I've got to get him out, and I want to meet him, so I'm going to do it. And then it started to get really, really intense, really fast, and I started to make some pretty loud sounds, which I didn't expect to do at all. I thought I was going to be one of those silent types that just kind of goes like this and pushes the baby out like that without making a peep. But that was not the case. If you've watched the birth vlog, you will not have heard any of these sounds because we played some nice music over that part, as to not traumatise any of you.
It traumatised me.
Yeah.
Certainly traumatised me.
Yeah. So yeah, I started to make some noises because I just couldn't help it. I just felt the urge to let out sounds while I was trying to push. And the midwives didn't realise, or one of the midwives didn't realise that I was pushing when I was. I don't know if I was supposed to tell her that I was pushing, but yeah, I was doing some small pushes and just going with my body, and I think they started to say that they could see him coming down, but that he wasn't crowning or anything at that point.
Yeah.
So they started to encourage me. They were saying, you're doing really good, and keep doing that and keep pushing down right into your bottom and stuff like that. And I think that I must have thought that I wasn't pushing hard enough, because he wasn't moving down very much. I could feel him moving down, and then I could feel him going back up again, which is obviously normal. And I felt like I didn't want to take too long doing that. One, because I was exhausted, and two, I didn't want him to end up being in distress if I was squishing his head in there for too long. So with them saying to me, keep going and keep pushing down into your bum and stuff, I felt like maybe they wanted me to push a bit more. So then I started pushing harder and making louder noises, and it was quite painful at this point, but I still didn't have any gas and air or anything. And yeah, I was still very aware of what was going on. So when he did start to crown, I could feel it, and I knew his head was at that surface, and it felt very stretchy and sore and burny and painful. And I don't know how many pushes it took to get his head out, but it didn't feel like a lot. It felt like maybe 3 or 4 or something. And then his head was out, and it was a massive relief, but it was very weird because I could feel his head moving from side to side, which was them trying to figure out which way to turn him. And I could also feel something small moving at the side of his head, which afterwards they told me he came out with his hand by his head like that. So yeah, his head came out along with his little hand. And then it felt like forever for me to get the next contraction to push his body out. But it was only actually about 2 minutes in reality. But I was there on all fours with his head sticking out, and I could feel it, and I could hear him like making gurgling sounds because he had all stuff in his nose and mouth, and he was trying to cry with just his head there.
You're going to cry?
No, not right now. Maybe in a bit. It was amazing and surreal, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so close to having him completely being born now. And I was thinking, when is this next contraction going to come? And the midwife was like, have you got another pain yet? And I was like, no. And I was thinking, why haven't I? Where is it? And I think they said try pushing anyway.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and so I did, and then the pain came as I started to push. So yeah, I pushed, and then his whole body flopped out, and it felt really weird and not very nice.
But relief?
But yes, so relieving. It was a very strange sensation and quite painful, but at that point I felt like I'd got through the worst of the pain, and I was just ready to have him in my arms by then. So yeah, he came out, and then they asked me to prop myself up a bit more so they could pass him to me through my legs. And they passed him to me, and he was so beautiful, and I just loved him. Yeah, it was amazing. It was completely the most amazing experience ever. And I just looked at him. Oh, I can't even explain how it felt. It was just so unbelievably amazing. Yeah, and then I looked over at Jodie, who was filming all of it, and she had tears coming down her face, which you couldn't see in the video because obviously she was behind the camera. And you just looked so overwhelmed but so happy and yeah.
And relieved as well.
Yeah.
Because it's a process for the partner, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Having to see you in that amount of pain for that, I mean, the whole thing didn't last very long, but it's long enough to see you going through that. You know, you just want it to be over and to have him here and for you to be okay.
I think the induction was about 4.5 hours since they put me on the drip, and then I was pushing for about half an hour until he came out. So it was quick. Oh, they gave me an injection as he was being passed to me to pass the placenta, because it's standard procedure that they give the injection for anyone who's doing an induction. And then, yeah, they gave me that, and then I sat there with him for a while, and I think I took off my gown thing. Did I at that point? And
Don't know.
And do some skin to skin before? Oh
No.
So yeah, they gave me that injection, and then the placenta came really quickly after that. But they had to like pull it out, the midwives. So that was really strange and quite disgusting, because I was sat there and I could see part of what was going on, because obviously I still had a bit of a belly bump, and I could see them like pulling on the cord. Oh no, you cut the cord, didn't you? We missed that part.
Yeah.
Jodie cut the cord, and the midwives were impressed, weren't they? Because they were like, oh, it's quite tough and it's like chicken or something. And then they were like, you have to do it a few times because these scissors are rubbish. And she'd already done it.
I'd already cut it, but they were still explaining how to do it.
Yeah. So she cut the cord, and then they were pulling on the other part of the cord to bring the placenta down. And I could see everything that was going on.
Everybody was looking at that placenta. I was at the bottom of the bed looking at it. The two midwives were looking at it. You were looking at it.
Yeah, and I could just tell the look on my face was like so grimacy, like disgusted.
It was.
Because it was like this giant red piece of bloody flesh that they were pulling out of me. It was pretty gross. But it felt really disgusting as well, and quite sore. But yeah, it was over really quickly, and actually I'm so glad they did it that way and I didn't have to do it naturally, because I was so exhausted. I did not want to push that thing out after the baby. So yeah, that was over quite quickly, and then they had to examine me to see if I'd torn, which they thought that I did, and they had a look, and they have to do this check where they see if it's gone through your front to your back passage by sticking their finger up there. We're gonna have to put a TMI warning at the start of this video. So they weren't sure whether it was a 2nd degree or a 3rd degree tear, and the 3rd degree tear is the one that goes through to the back passage. So they had to get a doctor to come in and have a look and do a second opinion. And the midwives were really nice about it when they did this exam thing to check my tear, and the doctor came in and was so rough. I hated her. I wanted to kill her.
Was it a woman?
Yeah, I think so. Gosh. She just went in there like no one's business and was like moving her hands around, and I had clearly I lost quite a lot of blood. I was sat in some blood. Well, they took it away quite soon after, but I just had a baby, okay? And just being a little rough.
They all know that, don't they?
Yeah, so yeah, I did not like her, but the midwives were really good. The midwives then explained to me that because it was a 3rd degree tear, I would have to go to the theatre to have it stitched up, which was kind of annoying because I did the whole labour and birth without any drugs or anaesthetic or anything, and then I had to go and get numb from the waist down to get sewn up afterwards. So yeah, I think I was a bit disappointed for a second, but then I was like, I just don't care. I'm so tired and hungry, and I was really relieved and happy to have him here, and I was just like, whatever, let's just get it done, to get me stitched up. So they said that the theatre was full at that time. They were dealing with an emergency C-section or something, so I would have to wait and they'd come and let me know. So a bit later on, the anesthesiologist came and she explained to me about what the tear was. She drew me a little diagram which showed that I hadn't torn all the way through to the back. It was just the first little muscle fibres of the back that had got torn a little bit. So that was good. I was pleased about that. And she explained about the anaesthetic and side effects and all of that, and I had to sign a consent form to say that I agreed to have it done. And they said that the theatre's still full and we'll come back and get you when it's ready. So it was like early hours in the morning. I had him at 9:30ish, and I hadn't eaten anything since before I went on the drip, so before 5 in the morning. And so I was really hungry, but because I was going into theatre, I wasn't allowed to eat anything, just in case they had to give me general anaesthetic. Yeah. So I was hoping they were going to come back soon and say, let's go do it. And I was really, really tired. As you can imagine, I was up all night in labour and having a baby. And I was very sore because obviously this tear was pretty bad. And it took hours for them to come back. I think it was about 2 p.m.
2:30.
2:30, so from 9:30 till 2:30, I was waiting around for them to come and take me to the theatre. I was absolutely starving. Every time I got up off the bed to go to the toilet, I felt really weak and dizzy. And they eventually came, and I had to wear this gown with my bum out, and it was very cold, and I had to be wheeled on a wheelchair to the theatre. And when I got there, I felt really overwhelmed and emotional and scared, because I'm not very good with needles and things. I had to have the cannula put in for the drip, and I fainted when they did that. So I thought, oh God, I've got to have this other thing in my back now. Am I going to faint again, or what am I going to do? And Jodie wasn't there with me because she couldn't be in the theatre. She was back with Evander and her mum at the time. So I was alone in this big white room with all these doctors, and about to get this thing done that I'd never had done before, and I was really nervous and tired and hungry and just feeling sorry for myself. And the guy who comes and gives you the pillow, he was like, oh, have you had a spinal before? And I said, no. And then he went, are you looking forward to it? And I was like, no. And he was like, oh yeah, come on, my first spinal, woo, like trying to make a joke out of it, which kind of made me feel a little bit better, but not much. And so he gave me the cushion, and he was telling me I had to like straighten, bring my shoulders down and then curl my back over and all that business. And I was just sat there hugging this pillow, feeling like on the verge of tears, feeling so sorry for myself. And then they did it, and it wasn't that bad. And they laid me down on the bed, and then I started going numb, and it felt so strange. But the anaesthesiologist was really nice, and she talked to me and made me feel a lot more comfortable. And the battery died, so we had to charge it, and now it's a new day, but just pretend that you can't tell. So yeah, the anaesthesiologist, she explained everything to me, and talked about how I would feel, and asked me lots of questions about if I was feeling okay and stuff like that, and could I feel anything when they were moving around down with my legs and stuff. And I did feel at first like really strange pins and needles sensation in my legs, and she said some people say they get that and others don't. But that wore off, and then I could just sort of feel a little bit of jostling and stuff when they were moving around, but hardly anything, because obviously it wasn't a big procedure, it was just being stitched up, so it wasn't a lot of movement. So yeah, but it was such a bizarre experience having my waist and everything below it completely numb. Especially when they took me off of the bed afterwards, after they'd finished, because they lifted me off and I could see my legs like moving, but I couldn't feel it. I was like, that does not seem like that leg belongs to me. So yeah, that was like a really odd experience. So yeah, I think overall the being stitched up part was the scariest part of my experience, and other than that I wasn't scared, and I think that really helped with the whole labour, because I was just so calm, and I'm quite a calm person anyway, but I really think that doing the hypnobirthing helped a hell of a lot, and going into it without having that fear of the contractions being really painful, I think definitely made a massive difference. So yeah, the labour was a good positive experience, and even though the actual birth, pushing him out, did hurt, I would still do it again. I felt very empowered, and I felt very aware of everything, which I was really glad about. And then I felt such a relief when I got him out, and when I held him, it was the most amazing feeling, and I was so proud of myself. I was like, I did this, and I did it without any pain relief, which I was really proud of as well. Not to knock anyone that does use it, because it is a painful experience. But yeah, I was a bit disappointed that I tore and stuff, but I didn't really care all that much because I had my boy. So yeah, overall, I feel like the whole labour and birth experience for me was a very positive one. And I am very glad about that. And I felt like even though I ended up not having the home birth and not having the water birth that I wanted, my experience of a hospital induction couldn't have gone any better. And all the midwives and everyone who looked after us were great, and I really appreciated all the care and help that went into looking after us at the hospital.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
And here he is now, and we love him so much. And he's getting grizzly, so we better go and change him and feed him.
I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, please give it a like and comment and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Deal with that.